to a new series here on the VOV Network. And we're going to be focused in on what I'm calling the 5 T's. T is in Tom. And that is transformation through transparency, truth, and trust. We're going to get into all kinds of detail and all kinds of relevant things about what that is. Why are things like transparency, truth, and trust so important? What we're going to be doing to help support you in this new journey of self transformation and kind of map out a plan as to what that's going to look like specifically for you. Because obviously, that journey, that road, the left turns and the right turns associated with that, are going to be different for all of us. Bridget, anything you want to add on top of that?
Well, I would just like to add that I'm so excited about this whole process just because in researching the transparency, trust, and truth, we will also be transparent and also be talking about our truths and our trust issues or the lack of trust or who we do trust. And so I'm looking forward to how it, plays out. I really am.
Yep. It's going to be exciting. We're going to be looking at it from a relationship standpoint as well as a leadership standpoint. So, two different sides of the coin that we definitely think play off of each other. Each has its own nuances to it. So, that's also going to be interesting and another good reason why you want to stick around and learn all you can, because we're going to give you some great tips and some great insight as to how to go about this journey of self transformation. So, stick around. Let's get into it. Well, what is going on, everyone? Welcome back once again to the VOV Network, where great things are always happening. I'm Brian, and I'm joined today with my co-host Bridget. How are you doing today?
I am great. I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm fantastic. Let's get into talking about the 5 T's: truth, transparency, trust, and all of that leading to some form of transformation that we want in our lives, whatever that might look like, and however you want to be able to apply that. So I'm going to bring in a presentation here, and we're going to talk our way through that a little bit. And again, transformation through transparency, truth, and trust. That is our overarching series, and that's actually going to carry us on through August. So June, July, and August will all be focused on various subtopics, all related to this transformation. So many levels to it, especially when it applies to relationships as well as leadership, and really getting into that and what that's all about. So that's what we're going to be getting into. So I'm going to bring in first and foremost, let's talk about some definitions. And Bridget, you want to kind of run through that for us when we're talking about transparency, truth, or trust? What are some high level definitions that we want to share with everyone?
Absolutely. So transparency, the quality or state of being transparent. And transparent means free from pretense or deceit. So basically, you just what that word means, you're see through. Basically, you're open to who you are, who you have accepted that you are, who you have accepted that other people are, and you've met them where they are as well. Truth, fidelity to an original, to a standard, or sincerity in action and character. So it's just factual. It's the original to the standard. It's factual. Trust, to rely on truthfulness or accuracy, to place confidence in. To rely on someone, to rely on yourself, to feel safe in that. The truthfulness or accuracy to a place confidence in and having confidence in that place.
Hmm. Absolutely. And those definitions are high level, and we're going to obviously drill a little bit deeper into each one of these. But I really wanted to just start off with that at this level because there are some really key words that I think we all need to kind of adhere to and make sure we have a good understanding of. Going back to transparency, one of the things that's there is when it says free from pretense or deceit. And we'll get deeper into that as we move through it, but that's key, and we really want to focus in there because pretense or intending to be deceitful can really have some adverse consequences to it. And one thing about deceit, and there's a word that I tend to say, what is it that you hold back? Sometimes we say or do, or we withhold certain things. And it's so then that brings in that question of what is the intent? What is the reasoning behind why we do that? Is it to set a different pretense than we want people to know, or is it possibly some deceit associated with that? What are the foundational pieces? So that's what we're going to dig into a little bit deeper so we all understand kind of what makes us tick, why we do certain things or choose not to do certain things, because there are two sides to that coin. Moving down to truth, I think the biggest pieces of that are the sincerity word, just being sincere, and the sincerity piece, and
Mhm.
how that represents your character, right?
Yes.
And you know how you wear that every day, and the truth that you're putting out from that standpoint, and then trust. For me, and Bridget, and I, we had this discussion, talking about trust, and obviously we're going to drill a little bit deeper in this. But it's interesting how certain words, you think that there is a standardized meaning or understanding of it, which there may be, but each individual still may take it from a different standpoint, right? And Bridget and I actually we talked about this, right? How my biggest issue with trust or concern with trust is trusting in someone else was where I tend to maybe hold things back because I don't have confidence or trust in the other person, whereas Bridget was looking at it from a kind of the opposite perspective. So that's why we want to dig into this and go a little bit deeper so that you really understand what we're talking about when we talk about transparency, truth, and trust. Bridget, anything else you want
And,
to add before we move
and I
on?
like to add that really the key word or the word I like to highlight is transformation, because all three of these components should lead you to a change in some form. Not just to know how to be transparent or to accept transparency and know how to know your truth or the truth, or know how to trust or in yourself or someone else, but that those words or keywords lead to a transformation in your life,
Mhm.
because that is what's key, and that is the message that we're trying to prove or to bring over to you guys, is that you transform by, like the word says, renewing your mind.
Mhm.
And so that's why we're here.
Absolutely. Could not agree more. So let's move on. We're going to talk now, dive in a little bit deeper. And again, this is going to be kind of a high level overview because we are going to dig deep, 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 and in many different ways as we do move forward over the next literally 3 months, talking about the various topics to support the 5 T's and how we're going to be able to help you and help, how you can use these things to truly grow. And as Bridget said, transform in whatever ways that's going to be most valuable and how you want to use this in your life, in your
Mhm.
particular situation.
Yes.
So let's dive a little bit deeper first, talking about just transparency and why is that important. Transparency builds deeper relationships by being honest, accepting your positive characteristics, flaws as well, because again, we just did an episode about perfection or lack thereof, because there really is no such thing as perfect. So there are going to be flaws, and being accepting of that, and being transparent so that those things are out there and they can be seen, because that is the reality. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
and also the possible parts that you might have played and things that you have failed at, right? Because until you have acceptance and own the different things that may happen, both positively and negatively in your life, that could be roadblocks that could be there that could prevent you from having that true transformation. And that's the goal and that's the objective here. It also allows for others to feel comfortable around you and to show up as their true, authentic selves. Because the more transparent, the more open, the more real, quote unquote, that you are in these situations, actually, it brings about a different level of trust, and acceptance with others around you. Bridget, what else
Yeah.
do you want to?
And transparency is really just like you the quote, the word that you use, owning. Transparency is just really owning up to who you really are and the ability to share that with others. And
Mhm.
so that does take some self-awareness, and some hard conversations with yourself, right? Because you have to be transparent with yourself before you can be transparent with others. And so you have to, like you said, dive deep into your flaws, the parts you played in your failures. And sometimes we kind of overlook when we fail, especially in relationships, and we want to look at what the other person did. Even in business, we want to look at what the other person did, and we don't stop and try to play that back to see what part we played in that.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
really, transparency is just ownership of who you really are.
Absolutely. I agree with that. And on top of that, one of the words I equate here, and that's going to be our very first session in the month of June. And that's going to be talking about authenticity, right? And authenticity, being your authentic self, being truly who you are, is part of the whole transparency piece. So that's really going to be the first layer that we're going to start to peel away when we
Mhm.
talk about authenticity. So that's definitely one of the words and one of the key characteristics that we want to talk about. So our first episode, we're really going to dig deep into being authentic, being true to yourself, and how to wear that and be comfortable with that day to day, and in pretty much every situation.
Because
So
it takes some bravery. It takes courage
it does take
to
courage.
become transparent. And you have to be comfortable with being authentic. It takes courage to be authentic, because it's not going to be popular for some people.
Hmm.
You may feel uncomfortable with it, as you start to kind of know yourself and become more self-aware. You'll be uncomfortable with the authenticity as well, because you'll start to kind of question, should I say, should I be, even though I want to say it, I want to be. And so that is hard. I know it is. I know it
It is.
has been for me.
Right.
Even showing up as my authentic self, I've had to. I still question myself, but once you're out there, it's like you're on stage. Once you're pushed out there, you're out there now.
Right.
You
Right.
might as well
Exactly.
perform.
Might as well perform. The curtain has gone up. You might as well
You're out
perform. Right.
there.
You're out.
Yes.
So, Bridget, how about we move on, and I'll have you talk a little bit more about the next piece of this, and this is the truth piece of it.
And I really I can't wait to start diving deep into truth, because for me it has two levels. So your truth, and this refers to your deeply held beliefs and how you feel your life and the world around you, how you feel about your life and the world around you. Your truth, what you believe in, what you think of the world around you, your environment, how you feel about people, how you feel about yourself. And in the truth, that which is true or in accordance with fact or reality and has no connection to your own beliefs. So basically, perception versus reality. Which is the truth? Perception is what you think. Reality is what is,
Mm-hmm.
and is factual.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so
Yeah.
your truth may be, I believe, my may be one way that I believe, but it may not necessarily be the truth. It's just my own perception.
Right. Right. It is just your own perception, right? And then one of the things I want to tie into that, because perception versus reality is one of the key components to me of this cornerstone that we're talking about with the transparency, truth, and trust. Because, and we talked about this briefly in our last video about when we were saying, don't compare your life to others. You're on the outside looking in. You don't have all of the facts. So when you're in these situations, what is the truth versus the reality from a perception standpoint,
Mm-hmm.
right? And if you don't have all of the facts, you don't know what's truly the root of what's going on, then you're really looking at things and not having the true concrete realities of why a certain thing is this way or why a certain person acts that way. You don't really have that true insight, right?
Right.
So seeking to understand the actual reality of it versus your perceived reality or how you're seeing certain things, that's going to be one of the key components to also get into with this.
And I know that people say, and I'm big on saying it as well, my truth. And so make no mistake, your truth is your truth. But the truth is what is reality, or your perception of reality. So don't get those two mixed up. Your
Mhm.
truth is what you feel, and
Mhm.
and we're big on saying that now. I'm just telling you my truth. Um, but so they're two different things.
They are two different things, absolutely. And we're going to move on to the next slide here. And this continues on truth. Bridget, you want to keep on with that?
The importance of truth. Now, what is truth and what is the importance of truth? Your truth. And what does it do? It pushes you to be vulnerable enough to be honest with yourself and others, and opens your heart to be transparent in sharing. And that was kind of what I touched on. Um, it takes a lot to tell your truth, because
Mhm.
you may offend other people, and when you learn your truth you may offend yourself. There is some hard conversation, as I said before,
Mhm.
to come to the realization of what your truth is. You may have been living a certain way all this time, or thinking a certain way all this time, or being around a certain group of people all this time, and your truth is, I don't like that. I needed to be in that for XYZ reasons. So it's just being honest with yourself and others, and basically being transparent, and that takes some, I use the word self-awareness so many times. It just takes some diving deep into who you really are and being authentic. The truth is necessary to build integrity and drive to function and thrive in both leadership and relationship. And we
Mhm.
know that, if you are a person that is known for lying all the time, that is going to filter over into your business. No one is really going to follow you as a leader, because you lie. so you, so you don't tell the truth. So it's
Right.
like, well, I'm not going in business with him. He couldn't tell me the truth about, something really simple. So that is important in relationships. It's and in relationships and in leadership.
Absolutely, 100%. And then what I want to add on top of that, talking about this piece, why it's important, and Bridget hit on, I think, one of the key words in there, and when we were going through this one, and this is the word of, um, excuse me, integrity, and
Integrity.
how that feeds. I mean, if there is a foundational piece to all of it, it is the integrity piece, and how this either helps build it or tear it down,
Put it
or maybe
down.
lose it completely. So I think those are key components. And then the other one I want to bounce back to, and I kind of made a note to myself here, when we talk about this part of it, is we live in a world, obviously, and it kind of is what it is, but we still have the ability to stand up, based on our values, our beliefs, our truths, and speak our minds and our hearts. And that has to do with sometimes feeling like we have to be so politically correct. What's PC? Oh, you can't say that because that's not being PC or politically correct, right? And there's
Mhm.
lots of situations where we might get into that. And what you truly feel, think, want to express or share might not follow that line of being politically correct. We're going to talk about that from an authenticity standpoint, a truth and integrity standpoint. What should you do? How is that going to be best represented in your life as you move forward and try to uh, start to go through this transformation?
Mhm.
Because there are some certain things that can really help move you forward so that you can get to a place of comfort expressing those things that you really want to share as you move forward with life, with your relationships, as well as from a leadership style standpoint. So, very important things.
Right, and I like that you said that you brought that up, because most people are very uncomfortable with their truth just because they don't feel like it's going to be political correct in whatever environment that they're in.
Yeah, could not agree more. Could not agree more. All right, moving on to the next slide then. This is where we talk about trust. So now we're shifting gears to the final T here, talking about trust. And that's again in relationships as well as in leadership. Uh, in leadership, trust is key. To a team's willingness to follow and apply their best effort, right? So they really need to feel like you got their back. Basically, we hear that term all of the time, and that really goes a long way with anyone who's part of your team when you are in a leadership role. As a leader, trust in this is the opposite direction now.
Hmm.
Trust in your team helps prevent micromanaging and also stalling your progress, right? Because this is where things like empowerment, which is some of the things that we're going to talk about. Um, by having that as part of your leadership style helps to build the trust, helps to build that credibility so that things get done, they get done in a much more efficient and effective manner because there is this level of communication, this level of trust, this
Mm-hmm.
true quote unquote teamwork that goes on between the leadership and also those that report to the leader. So very important piece of it. And then now, when you talk about personal relationships, trust in those allow both parties to show up uh, and to elevate within the relationship, right? Their efforts, because the more you trust the other individual, the more you're probably going to be willing, A, to open yourself up, and then also B, to bring forth greater effort
Mm-hmm.
within that particular relationship because the level of trust is rising. So as that tide rises with trust, you tend to rise up and
Yes.
express yourself more, expose yourself more, be more engaging in those types of relationships. So that's important. And then the big one for me is, as it says, here, and you also stop second guessing the other person's intentions. And intentions is going to be a key word throughout our entire series
Right.
because that's the thing. All of this relates back to some type of behavior. It's going to be behavioral patterns that we're going to be getting into, and that's what we're going to be talking about. But as we talk through these various behavioral patterns, you might do the same behavior, but what is the intent or the intentions behind said behavior is what we need to get tuned into. And that's where the awareness needs to come from, how you frame it, how you say it, and what is the intent behind what you do, the actions that are there.
Right.
That's where the true differences are going to come in. That's what's going to make a difference.
Right.
What do you think, Bridget?
Well, I going back to trust and in leadership. I know that I've seen where the leader and the team they're just exhausted
Hmm.
because the leader is not trusting the team does not trust the leader, so the leader is micromanaging, the team is not putting forth their best effort because of the trust. And so it is very exhausting. And even in a relationship, it's exhausting when there's no trust there.
Hmm.
You're always on your toes. You're always like, well, okay, what's next? When is the ball going to drop?
Hmm.
What are they trying to say? What is the motive? What is the
Hmm.
intent
Hmm.
of this conversation or
Hmm.
their action? Even if the action is a positive action, when there's no trust there, you will always think that there's something else behind this good gesture, this
Hmm.
positive gesture. You'll always think, okay, so what does he want? What does she want? What
What
are
does
they
he
saying?
want? Right.
What are they really
Right.
saying? What are they
Right.
really trying to do?
Right.
So it's
Yeah.
the lack of trust is just so exhausting.
Yeah. Absolutely. Well, it is so, so true, how that can undermine all of the goodness that can be there. Can you just get washed away if you don't have that foundational piece, and that's trust.
Mhm.
I could not agree more with
And
that.
that's something that you build from the beginning. Even in leadership as a team, as a leader with the team, you build that from the beginning. And that's where truth comes in as well. Because if you start off, not being truthful and your team later finds that out, that'll lay the foundation for the whole time,
Whole
right?
time.
That
Yeah.
whole project or that whole whatever that would lay the foundation for that because they no longer believe you. And so it just is really important to start trusting at the beginning. And a lot of people say, well, I'm going to trust them until they give me something, not, until they do something so that I don't have anything to trust them about. I'm
Mhm.
thinking just build that level of trust at the beginning with the little simple things, even especially in the relationships, build that trust at the beginning. And so you are already lay that trust relationship, that trustful foundation for that relationship. And then you won't always, well, they gave me flowers. What are they? Okay, what you want? You know how we do as parents, you're being good, you're cleaning up. What do you want? Because we
Right.
already know, I don't trust you because when you
Right.
do this, that means this. I think that, building that trust at the beginning and not waiting till you have some longevity in it is very important.
Yeah. Yeah, and I'm gonna chime in on top of that because I've read a few different leadership books, and they talk about two different styles of trust. And we are going to dive deeply when we do get to that part in our series talking about it. But I want to just share this now. And there are two schools of thought. One school says, um, think of it from this standpoint, as especially from a leadership role, you instantly give it, and I'll just use a simple term like credits, right? Instantly, everybody has trust. You give them trust out of the gate, and they have 10 credits. And then as they do things that maybe cause them to lose trust, you take away a credit. So they're down to 9, down to 8, so on and so. The other school is 100% the opposite. Everyone starts with 0 credits, and then
And
they
then
have to
build their way
earn
up.
those credits of trust. So that's one of the discussions we're definitely going to have, because there's some philosophy and
Mhm.
psychology that apply on both sides of that fence. So we'd be very curious to hear what our
Yes,
audience has to say and what their take is when we talk about those things.
I like that.
Uh, so that's the thing. It's very important. You know, it really helps to have the trust there, whether it's a leadership role or a personal relationship role. Moving on to the next slide, let's talk about that. And this is where we're going to get into transformation, and that's kind of where we started this. And that's what Bridget said at the very beginning. The whole point of this is transformation. That's what we want to do, but using the foundational pillars of transparency, truth, and trust as a way to guide and lead that transformation. So I wanted to bring that back really quick for a quick definition of what the definition of transformation is, right? So, definition: an act, process, or instance of transforming or being transformed, right? So, the thing that we want to for you to take away from this is this means action. That
Mhm.
definition means that there's action. There's a process, there's an instance, there's an act. Something is happening. So transformation actually is a continuous process. It does not end. It's not like you get there, oh, but I'm done. I'm done transforming, right? There's an action piece of it that continues, that can, because you can always be better, be sharper, be more in tune with, be more aware of whatever that might be, right? As you
Yes.
move through it. The key piece of it, and Bridget and we talked about this before, is what what do you want this transformation to look like, be for you specifically as an individual. So
Mhm.
if there's anything that we want you to take away from today's video, is to know that we're going to be diving deeper into the various pieces and parts and the cornerstones and pillars that we've shared so far, excuse me. But as you start to apply the things that we've already talked about, what parts of your life, where do you want to move from A to B to C to D? What does that kind of look like? And start in your mind to kind of frame that out, and maybe even make a few notes, because that's where we want you to bring your mindset as we walk our way through the steps that are there. Bridget, what do you want to share with
And
them?
I was just thinking that when you said that, write it down, bring some notes with you already, and then be prepared to write some notes, because we're going to be transformed at the end of this. This is not just a series so that we can talk about, being transparent, or talk about, your truth or the truth, or talk about trusting and how to start trusting, and why you trust, but so that you can, so these concepts can transform your life. So be
Mhm.
prepared to do that. I know I am prepared for it. So bring something to write with, a pen, some paper, your journal. Because we're going to go through this from June all the way to August. We are going to give some good information, some good tips. You guys can talk back with us and tell us what you found to work for you as well, and what you think of the transformation, and the idea of being transparent, especially this first series. The first part that we're coming into is the authenticity, because there are so many people that have a problem with that, and I've talked to people about being authentic, and I think this is like a new thing, and people want to know about, oh, how do I come over as, how do I be authentic and still be able to have the circle I have,
Mm.
or still be able to have the business partners, or still be able to hang out in a certain in certain situations, I mean, with certain people in a certain circle. How do I be my authentic self, because I've been this way for so long? And so how do I turn from that? And so that is going to be a transformation within itself.
Correct.
So
And
be prepared. Be prepared. I'm excited.
yep. That is so true. The authenticity piece is going to be big. And then as we go through this series too, over the next 3 months, we are also going to have a handful of guests join us. So some guest presenters, some guest speakers who have some amazing stories specifically related to transformation, what it's been like, what their journeys have been, some of the ways and techniques and different things that they've done to be able to adapt and adjust and work their way through the transformational things that have happened in their lives. And then now that they're there, kind of, at the pinnacle point of what they tried to get to, how that's changed their lives, what that impact has been.
Right,
So
right.
it's going to be very dynamic and absolutely something that you want to go along for this ride with us, because it's absolutely going to be worth it.
It is. It is. I can't wait. I'm excited. And audience, once our speakers are on, we are inviting you as well to chime in and let us know your experiences as well, and we'll talk through those as well. So I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah. Yes, for sure. So we're going to wrap this up today because, again, much more to come, and very deep and very detailed and very exciting stuff. So really excited and looking forward to it. Just bringing us back to the question of the day, and this is really just more of a takeaway. All right. So not that we want to answer this today, but we want to use this question to dig into what we want this whole series to look like for each and every one of us at an individual level. All right.
Mhm.
How can transparency, truth, and trust help you in your journey of self-transformation? So there are no right answers, there are no wrong answers. We're all on our unique paths in life. So however, in whatever ways that's going to be relevant for you, that's absolutely the key for all of this. And that's what we want you to take away from this.
I,
Bridget,
I
what are your final thoughts on today?
I agree. I know that we talked about in our last the last show about comparing ourselves to others. So I think this is a great segue into transparency, truth and trust, because you have to kind of get away from that comparison and that competition to get to a place where you're ready to transform and be transparent and be authentic and tell your truth and know the truth, and then trust that others are going to believe in you and you're going to believe in others. So I think
Mhm.
it's a great flow.
Yeah. And when you just said all of what you just said, it's a mouthful. I mean,
Right.
the layers and the levels, and that's why
Yes,
we are dedicating a full 3 months to all of this, because it
absolutely.
is a lot of layers to it, and they all matter. And trust me, being authentic to yourself, being true to yourself, putting it out there, getting to that place of comfort, because as Bridget mentioned, you mentioned a little while ago, there are going to be some people and some places and some things you're going to possibly have to let go of, and that might not be comfortable, but that's what it's going to take to get to that level of that true authenticity, that true level of truth and trust with yourself, those around you, the whole 9 yards. So it's a lot, but the end result, and based on some of the guests we're going to have come on and the things that they're going to share, the net result of it all is absolutely transformational for your life, and that's really what this is all about, and that's what we're all about here, is to help guide you on these types of journeys in your life.
And also to show you you're not alone. You'll find out throughout this whole journey that you are not alone, and you'll identify, I'm sure, with at least one thing that someone says, and it'll be an aha moment for you. So it's going to be great.
Yep. 1000% agree. Well, that's all I have to share. Again, we wanted to just come out and say this is kind of an overview of what we're going to be diving really deeply into here, between the VOV network and the Building Bridges mentorship and outreach, and over the next few months. Uh, Lots of great stuff to come. Many great guests that we're going to be having come on and share their stories. And the key piece of it is you out there, our audience. You've got to get engaged, because that's what it's going to take. Remember, when we're talking about the definition of transformation, it's all about action. It's movement, and that part of it falls to you to take the ownership of that and to move it forward. So that's going to be the key component that we are going to look for. Well, until next time, everyone, take care of each other, And we'll definitely see you in June as you start on this transformational journey with transparency, truth, and trust. Until then, everyone, take care.